What are your expectations? Just
Hmm.
sometimes we never even say it. We just think it in our head, but we never communicate it to the other person.
What are the common challenges you've actually seen, right, from women actually transitioning from that, enjoying the process, waiting gracefully, and when they are getting into relationship, and when like reality hits them? What are some of the common challenges you've actually experienced in this process?
Um, I think one of the common ones is the fact that expectations aren't being met. So people say to you, "Oh, I expected her to be like this. I expected him to be like this. I expected the marriage to look like this." And when that doesn't happen, people are sad. People question whether or not they're with the right person and whether or not this is the relationship that they're meant to be in. So that's one of the things that tends to come up. Also, as much as we are preparing, even on this journey to marriage, you know, the rubber doesn't fully hit the road until you are in the relationship. You can prepare, and there is a lot of preparing to do in advance of the relationship. But then you have to remember that when you come into that relationship, you are interacting with another human being that is their own person, that has their own preferences, that has their own expectations, that has their own way of doing things. And coming into the relationship, one of the things that then throws people is that I thought we would just know, we would just combine and it would just, align itself. But it doesn't. And the reason is because most people aren't intentional in the joining together.
Hmm.
Most people just assume a lot of things. I assume that when I get married, I will know how to take care of children. Really. I wish it was that simple. I wish it was just, oh, get pregnant, have a baby, pop the baby out, and then I'll know how to look after a baby. The truth is that it doesn't work like that. Everything is supposed to be line after line. And there is a place for preparation, but there is also a place for intentionality. And many times people aren't intentional. So, first of all, sometimes people have even waited, but they didn't prepare. They did all the other things, but then didn't think about what that marriage would look like for them. They didn't think about what their own personal unit would look like, what their family dynamics and family values would be. They don't think about those things. And then they come into marriage and then things are happening. And then, if you come into a relationship and into your marriage and you come into it with your background without almost like thinking of your own relationship in light of the background that you're coming from, you are likely to face challenges. Part of the reason we face challenges is because we have all been programmed by where we're coming from. We have, whether we accept it or not. Our parents have said things to us. Our parents have shown things to us. Our friends have said things to us. Our friends have shown things to us. And then society, in a general sense, whether it is through social media or general media, is already giving us all these other messaging. So imagine bringing all of that into your relationship without filtering it and saying, actually, does this work for me? Does this work for me and the person that is in front of me? So those are the kind of challenges that come up when we're not consciously now taking a step by step approach to the relationship that we're getting ourselves into. But probably the one of the biggest ones is a lack of preparation and unmet expectations. When people don't do these two in particular, if you overcome these two, the other things are easier because you're now in a better place. If a lack of preparation, if you have a knowledge gap when it comes to communicating, and the fact that communication is almost 7% verbal and the rest is non-verbal. If you
Hmm.
come into communicate, if you come into conversations with people and you're trying to communicate with the person you're in a relationship with, so you're saying one thing with your mouth, but your body language is saying something entirely different, you are going to have challenges. This is why sometimes you hear the man saying she's disrespectful. And she's like, but I never said anything disrespectful. He's like, you didn't have to say it. It showed all over your face. So these are the kind of things that can act as challenges in that transition. And it's obviously knowing what to do, knowing even the source of for example, knowing the source of your expectations, knowing what expectation, let's even go one step behind. What are your expectations? Sometimes we never even say it. We just think it in our head, but we never communicate it to the other person. I know that because even in my journey to marriage, my husband and I had expectations. And even though we had a lot of conversations, there were still expectations that we never voiced out until we got married, and then things were happening. We were like, well, why aren't you doing it? And he's like, well, you didn't say.
Yeah.
And many people have the same thing. He didn't say, she said, oh, this is what I did. This isn't what she did. All of that. So yes.
Sometimes we know certain things, right? But having it being articulated to us kind of like, wakes us up, like that tap on the shoulder. Like when you said, the communication itself, the verbal part is like 7%, and the majority of it is how you're acting and how you're interacting with that person. You know, even me myself, I'm guilty of this because sometimes I feel like, but I said the thing, and and I'm saying it. You should like believe me or whatnot, but I constantly get that pushback. Is how you're saying it is when I try to do certain things and you're not actually acting in accordance with what you've said previously. And I think
Yes.
that's really, really important. I think especially for men, because sometimes we feel like going back to the way society has programmed us and where we're coming from or
Yeah.
whatnot, fundamentally is like men is like, oh, I don't express my feelings. So if I express my feelings to you, it means I sincerely and genuinely love you. Okay, I've heard. But act in accordance is another thing. Is another thing. It's like as long as I am, providing, I'm trying to make sure we are feeding and whatnot. And it's true. All of those things are true, but it's the emotional absence that may be there sometimes as she's trying to
Yes.
communicate to you, because I'm constantly having this problem myself, right? Because I feel like there are some fundamental things, like as a man you're supposed to like focus all your energy on,
Yes.
and once you are doing this for this person is supposed to interpret it as the ultimate sacrifice, right?
Mm.
But that is accepted. I'm not saying that is not true, but I'm still saying there's still space for vulnerability, and there's still
Yes.
space for communication, and there's still
Yes.
space for understanding that just as you have your own beliefs and your systems or whatnot, this other person also has theirs, which is what you were talking about the other time. It's like no matter how we want to deny it, our backgrounds, our upbringings, our friendship, our previous relationships, and the
Yes.
rest of it has shaped us in a certain type of way that may be alien to the new
Another
partner we
person.
were with.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's like understanding these little things. And, I heard a joke, and this lady was like, one of the greatest things women do for men is like they are constantly training us for our next partner. So women should be working. And it's true. It's like,
Yep.
it's like, it's like women should be, dabbing themselves up when they see themselves on the road, and when they find this wonderful, amazing man, they shouldn't just think like they hit the jackpot or feel like, oh, he's doing all of this for me. They should actually realize that he has actually gone through like several relationships, that he had to be a better communicator. He has
Yes.
had to find a goal in his life, because they like sometimes you're in a relationship and it's because you're not a better communicator, and you lose that relationship, and you understand that going into this next relationship I have to do better.
Yes.
Sometimes it's like you weren't focused on your life goals, and you weren't like being like, I don't know how to put that, and this lady is telling you like you should do more, like you're not living up to your
Yeah.
potential and whatnot, and she abandons that relationship or something goes wrong, and you go into the next relationship, you're like, okay, I'm not going to go into this relationship until I have certain things fixed in my life
Yes.
and the rest of it.
Exactly.
So if I'm being honest, that is true. Like the way she said it, I'm like, okay, yes, I think we need to appreciate more women, because I'm looking back at some of the previous relationships I've had in my life, and I'm like, okay, okay, I'm in a much better place right now. And that
Yes.
was because somebody else called out my bullshit.
Yeah.
And if we're being honest, so yeah.